So I have returned from watching Fantastic Four First Steps. What do I think? It's because I did just see Superman, obviously. I saw it when it first came out, and this was the next film of the year. That was its competitor. Overall, I think Fantastic Four is a good film. Like, ultimately, at the end of the day, when all is said and done, I think Fantastic Four is a very good movie. But it has its problems, and its problems are pretty big. And the reason why I say that, well, I mean, we'll get into it, right? So, the story itself, by the way, there's going to be spoilers in this video. I really don't know how I can talk about this, because, like, at least Superman, I could leave it, for the most part, spoiler-free, but just, man, all my problems with the movie involve spoilers. So, anyways, let's go ahead and jump into it. So, Galactus, obviously, is the big threat. The idea of the film, as many of you have heard, is Galactus is coming to Earth. You can't stop him. He's going to eat Earth. However, when the Fantastic Four go to talk to him to negotiate, the only thing he will take to spare the Earth is Mr. Fantastic and Sue Storm's child that they just had, and they've been trying for years, apparently, and they had given up, really, on having kids. But this kid is like a miracle situation kind of thing, and all this. So that's, like, great, and then, like, obviously, they're going to say, no, we won't give up our child, there must be another way. Well, Reed does something dumb, which I understand, from what I understand, Comic Book Reed does this. But for some reason, when he goes up to the podium, he tells them the legit 100% truth, flat out. Which is fine, but at the same time, it's not fine, because he put everybody in danger and made everybody misunderstand and all of this. It makes for a weird finale because of what they do in the finale, when people have legitimate reason to not trust the Fantastic Four after the way they handled that situation. So I find it very strange that they're all working together by the end. But anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. So Reed Richards, right? And Galactus. So Galactus coming to Earth. They're not going to give up their baby for him, so they need to find out another way. So they Reed, at least, spends the entire film, for the most part, on a chalkboard, doing all these miscellaneous math equations, doing all this miscellaneous smart guy stuff, which, by the way, they do not explain at all. Which is fine. I understand they need their own technobabble. But even in the MCU, when, like, Iron Man or Hulk would do, like, technobabble, and it didn't just lead to nothing. It wasn't just, I'm just going to write random stuff on a chalkboard, and maybe it means something and maybe it doesn't. In the MCU, like when Iron Man would say something, or when, Mark Ruffalo's Bruce Banner would say something, in the next scene, whatever they were doing math for, or whatever they were calculating, would come to fruition. So that scene of them doing on a chalkboard wasn't just useless or pointless, it led into something. But in Fantastic Four, he does all this drawing on a chalkboard to try to, like, figure out a plan to beat Galactus, but he never finds a plan. He does eventually find a plan, but that plan ends up getting completely derailed almost immediately. So after that plan, he's back to no plan. But what is his new plan? The plan nobody wanted from the beginning and everybody fought against, but now they're going to do it because it's the only way, which they said it was the only way even in the beginning, which is use the baby. Because, like, okay, and I explained this to my friend, how jarring this was as a viewer. Because here's how it went. The audience was like, or the civilians of Earth were like, well, just give up the baby. Give up your one baby to save the billions of people who are on planet Earth. Makes sense to us. And they didn't want to do it for reasons. And so basically it was Reed thinking of the worst possible outcome, which was the baby. And so it was, I have to use the baby, but I won't. But my brain is like, maybe that's a good way. And then here comes Sue. No, you can't use the baby. You can't. I wasn't going to use the baby. You were thinking about it. Oh, okay, I was thinking about it, but I won't do it. Oh, there's another way. We'll find another way. Don't worry. I won't use the baby. We'll find another way. Chalkboard, chalkboard, chalkboard leads to absolutely nothing. Only for the scene way later in the film to come up where Sue's like, we have to use the baby. And Reed's like, no, we mustn't use the baby. We'll find another way. I'll find another way. And she's like, no, we must use the baby. And then almost immediately, Reed's like, we must use the baby. It's the only way. And it was like, okay, all right. Like, that was one of the things that was so frustrating with the movie, was there is no plan. And there was no plan from these four. If it wasn't for, if, just think about it. Think about this movie. If there was no baby, they'd be fucked. They would be completely screwed if they had no baby. They would have died. Galactus would have eaten the planet. They had no plan. There was no other plan. They had no other way to beat him than using the baby. Which again is fine. It just doesn't make them seem very fantastic. I understand Galactus is a universal level villain, but this is a movie that's supposed to be enjoyed by everybody. So if a non-hardcore comic book fan, like, what if somebody, like, I think we can all agree that anyone who goes to a movie should be able to enjoy it. Yes, right? So if you go to a movie about heroes and they struggle to beat the villain, narratively, there's going to be a lot of questions from an average person. But that is what that is. That's not necessarily a real complaint. It's just kind of, I wish that they would make some of this stuff a little bit more accessible for new viewers, which they did. They did do a lot in this film. Let me not talk about the negatives for a minute. One of the good things in this movie I really enjoyed was the fact that it wasn't connected to anything until the end. Was the fact that this was so standalone. Again, except for the end. But this was so standalone. Like, you could just go in. You don't need to know anything about any of the past MCU movies. You don't need to know anything about the Fantastic Four, really, because they kind of give you an explanation. You don't really need to know much while going into this. So I did really enjoy that. It really did feel like an old movie. Now, to go back... Actually, let me stay on what I liked for a minute. Let me talk about the main cast. I thought Sue Storm was great. I thought she was really, really great. I thought whoever played Thing was also... There we go. Whoever played Thing was also really good. Because here's the thing is, when I saw him in the trailers, I was kind of like, I didn't really like how he looked. But then when I saw him in the movie, like, trench coat off, full on The Thing, I was like, oh yeah, we're cooking. We're cooking now. So I loved him. Johnny was really, really good. I was talking with a friend I went to go see this movie with, and I didn't think anything of it in the movie when I saw it. I didn't. But she starts talking about his haircut, and you can see his haircut right here. Johnny's. And when watching it, I was like, I mean, I just assume that's part, like him not caring about it being down is adding to his douchey persona, and maybe. But my friend was like, well, the thing about it is that isn't Johnny supposed to be like this woman attractive, like he's very attractive to women? And I was like, yes. And she was like, well, I mean, with that haircut, he just kind of looks like a dork. Like she's like, I didn't think he was very attractive. She's like, I don't know if, like, whatever look they were going for, I don't think it went. And I didn't think about that, but now that I have that frame of reference, I do look at his design and I'm like, yeah, what is going on with his hair? Yeah, what were they trying to accomplish there? I literally did not think anything of it until my friend brought it up. And then I was like, oh yeah, what is going on with his hair? But aside from that, I liked him. I thought I wasn't going to because of some of the actors' comments about the character of Johnny Storm. So I thought that it was going to be a disrespect to the character. But he clearly was not as vulgar as Johnny Storm is in the comics. But I could tell his character was still intact. So that made me happy. Now, I will say Pedro Pascal as Reed Richards. Again, you want to rate him? He was good as Mr. Fantastic, as Reed Richards. He was good. My problem with him is that he was, in my opinion, the weakest out of the four. And while, again, with Vanessa Kirby, I was like, I didn't even think twice about it. I was like, oh, Sue Storm. Thing is covered in CGI, but same deal. I was like, oh, it's Thing. Johnny. Oh, it's Johnny Storm. Like, I didn't even think for a minute. Pedro Pascal, I just kept getting a vibe that, like, I wasn't getting Reed Richards. I felt like I was getting what somebody thought Reed Richards was. That's what his acting felt like to me. Now, maybe on a subsequent rewatch, might change, but I just felt like he was acting the way he thought Reed Richards might be. And I don't know if I agree with his interpretation of that. Trying to think of what other positives. I thought the robot was cool. I forget the robot, Herbie, I think. But what are the positives? It was just a good movie. But the good, I mean, the action scenes were really good. The action scenes were fun. I wish Mr. Fantastic had more to do as far as the action. But yeah, again, solid overall. Let me just go back into the negatives, and then I think we can kind of cap it off here. Back to the negatives. This was brought up by a friend of mine I went to go see the movie with, the same person I was talking to, and there's another thing I didn't realize in the movie. But after she said it, I was like, I agree. Johnny and the Thing have nothing to do in almost the whole movie, aside from, like, they're the cool uncle of the baby. Outside of that, they don't really have much to do. Now, Johnny does have, like, a kind of small subplot of, like, him hitting on the female Silver Surfer, but they don't go far enough with it. So it just kind of is just like this thing he does, but then he stops doing it and doesn't do it again. So that was unfortunate. Okay. The number one thing I hated about this movie, the number one thing that kept pulling me out of the movie the entire time, to where I was like, oh, I literally remember looking around at so many points in this movie being like, oh my God. And it was this movie's pacing. Holy shit. This movie has some of the worst pacing I've ever seen. Oh my God. There were some scenes that took forever. Like, a ridiculous amount of time. Like, when I say I was looking around the theater saying, like, are we serious? It was because I was like, why are we still here? Why are we still in this scene? Like, the scene is over. Why is the camera still on? Why are characters still saying things that don't add anything else to the scene at all? And yet we're still here. Still in this scene. Still with these characters, and they're still talking, but nobody is saying anything important. And there were so many scenes like that in the movie. There were so many scenes like that in this movie where I was like, dude, this scene should have been over like 2 minutes ago. Why are we still here? The number one scene that really had me to being like, okay, was when Sue Storm dies and, like, there's that moment of them, like, all holding her, and then they're all crying, and then there's the scene of Ben grabbing Mr. Fantastic's shoulder and being like, no, she's gone. And then there's the, Mr. Fantastic doing CPR, and I'm talking, we're doing this 5 whole minutes of this, and it goes on long enough to where you're like, oh, she really is gone. Because again, we're at like 5 minutes of them trying to bring her back. And it's like, oh, I've seen a movie before. I've seen what happens in these scenes where they take a really long time. It means that character's dead, and the weight they're trying to put on the audience so that they realize it. So I thought she was dead, and then I was like, I literally was like, give me a break. I was like, what are we doing? Like, why did that take so long? Why did that, like, that was what I was, dude, there's so much of this movie, man, that, like, and you know what's crazy is there's a scene that is like this at the very end, but they do it well. It's the scene at the very end where there's like some new threat after everything. It's like the epilogue, and we don't even know what the threat is. It's just them like getting ready to get into the Fantastic Four, Fantastic Car or whatever, and drive over there. And there's a scene of them like, it's a dumb scene, but there's a scene of them like trying to get the baby car seat in, and it's just a dumb scene of just a bunch of really, really smart guys like Reed Richards, and Johnny Storm and The Thing. By the way, Johnny Storm and The Thing, not Reed Richards level intelligence, but these are still very, very, very smart intellectuals. But again, they're all trying to put a car scene in, and of course these like genius guys, of course the guy thing is that they can't put in, they could do anything else, they could save the world, they can't put in a car seat, and it's just them like playfully struggling with it. I thought that was fun. That's a moment that I was referring to earlier of like, we're in this scene, we're still in this scene, characters are still talking, but at least it's like, oh, there's some fun stuff going on. I wish the other scenes were like that. The other scenes of them just kind of the scenes still going and the characters talking, but nothing important's really being said. I wish in those scenes there was more of that, more of those moments of the characters, just being the characters, you know, and just doing stupid stuff. Well, maybe not being stupid stuff, but you know what I mean, like just being the characters and doing things these characters would do in these specific moments. Not just cameras on and it's reality television and I'm watching Reed Richards go to the bathroom or whatever. Like, I don't care. There were so many scenes like that in this movie where I was just like, why? And there were some scenes. The problem too is there were so many things that I wanted to see. Like I mentioned earlier, I think Johnny and The Thing should have had more things to do. I think that there was one scene too where Galactus is already like, I'm coming to eat Earth. And they're all like, we gotta figure out another plan, we gotta figure out what we're gonna do. And there's a scene of Reed and Sue just laying in the bed. They're just chatting it up about the baby, you know, and I was like, guys, what are we doing? Don't we have like 20 hours until like the Earth is gonna get eaten? What are we doing? Get out of the bed. Figure out how we're saving Earth. Yeah, I really do. It really does seem like I'm really talking a lot bad about this movie. I really do think, again, ultimately, overall, I think it's a good movie. But it has a lot of problems. It does. And again, I can't even say I would watch this movie again. I can't. This movie's a good movie, and I enjoyed watching it. But this movie is so slow. It takes forever to really get somewhere, and then the places you get don't feel very satisfying because the characters themselves waste so much screen time. They just waste it. They just completely waste their screen time by not doing much. So when the film decides to ramp up and get to these exciting moments, they feel a little weightless because the characters haven't done anything to prepare for it. So it just kind of feels like nothing. But that's kind of my thoughts. I want to say I had a couple other thoughts, but most of them kind of blend in with the pacing issue. The pacing just was the worst part about this movie. But anyways, you guys, what did you think? I'm curious to see what you guys thought. Again, I went to the theater with a bunch of friends, and one person came out of the theater and said he loved it. So, you know, it's all about your own personal experience and what you take out of the movie. What do you think? Leave your comments down below. Let me know. And as always, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye. Thanks so much to Prince Tendley, Ryan Wilkins, and Kame Senin for all becoming members. If you would also like to become a member, on my channel there exists multiple different tier levels, and you can pick out which one is best for you.